Hi everyone, good morning. How's everything with you guys? My name is Samanta Alves. I am one of the volunteers here in the Spirit Center of Ireland. I'm going to be your host today. So before I start, I just want to make sure that everything is working well. So if you guys could just give me a hands up. From what I see here on my phone, it's working. And it seems like you can hear me well. But if you can confirm, just because this week my throat was a bit sore and my voice was gone for a few days, I just want to make sure everything is well and you can hear me fine and all is working. Good morning, everyone that is joining us now. Okay, it seems like it's working, so thank you so much for letting me know. Let's start then with our initial prayer. Dear Jesus, dear God, dear spiritual friends, our mentors, stay here with us today so we can do justice to what you want us to do, so we can pass your words, so we can, with our message, reach the heart of everyone that is watching this and everyone that will watch it afterwards as well. So guide us during this conversation so we can have a very fruitful conversation and we can learn from it. Thank you for the blessing of being here, of being alive, of being able to do this work and being able to be in earth as well. Thank you for our lives, and thank you for the opportunity to learn every single day and to grow. Be with us, with all of us. And if this message don't get through words in people's ears, let it get there through love and true energy, good energy. Wishing everyone well today. So be it. Okay, so as I mentioned, I am one of the volunteers here in the Spiritual Center of Ireland. I am also part of the Spiritual Center Federation. And today we are going to talk about selfishness and charity. According to the dictionary, the word selfishness means the quality or state of caring only for oneself or one's own interests. And the word charity means generous actions or donations to help the poor, ill, or needy. Something given to a person or persons in need. A charitable act or work, a charitable fund, foundation or institution. Benevolent feeling, especially towards those in need or in disfavor. Leniency in judging others. Forbearance. And it's not necessary to be versed in psychology to know that most of all devices that characterize human imperfection is selfishness. From it comes ambition, jealousy, envy, hatred, or pride, and all kinds of evils that make humanity unhappy. For the resentment that it produces and social disturbances to which it gives rise. So, in the Spirit's book has a session to talk about selfishness. It's question. It's from question 913. It's part of chapter 12, part 3 of the Spirit's book, chapter 12, moral perfection. So it has a whole session to talk about selfishness. And question 913 says, of all the vices, which may we regard as the root? And the answer from the Spirit is, we have already told you many times, selfishness. All evil derives from it. You study all the vices and you will see that selfishness is at the bottom of them. As much as you may struggle against them, you will never uproot them as long as you have not destroyed their cause. Let all your efforts tend toward that end, because selfishness is the true scourge of society. Those in this life who want to approach moral perfection must uproot from their heart every sentiment of selfishness, for selfishness is incompatible with justice, love, and charity. It neutralizes all other qualities. So, we also have in the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 13, Alves, we see here also a part explaining selfishness. And this is what I'm going to read to you guys now is an extract from a letter written by Emmanuel or dictated by Emmanuel in Paris in 1861. So item 11 of chapter 11 says selfishness, that plague on humankind, must disappear from the earth, whose moral progression it hinders. To Spiritism, the task is reserved of enabling earth to ascend in the hierarchy of worlds. Thus selfishness is the target at which all true believers must aim their weapons, their strength and their courage. I say their courage because more courage is needed to overcome oneself than to overcome other people. Let all of you, therefore, make every effort to fight selfishness within you, for that monster that devours all minds, that child of pride, is the source of all the all the miseries of this world. It is the negation of charity and consequently the greatest obstacle to human happiness. Jesus has given you the example of charity, Pontius Pilate that of selfishness. For while the righteous one was about to walk the holy stations of his martyrdom, Pilate washed his hands, saying, "What is this to me? This is the righteous man. Why do you want to crucify him?" Nonetheless, he let be led to his execution. So, selfishness is always a test of dryness of heart. It erodes the sensitivity to the sufferings of others. The man of heart, on the contrary, feels the suffering and gets emotional. This is why He sacrifices himself to save and mitigate it in others because he would like them to do the same for him. So he is happy when he avoids grief or suffering to someone. Having identified himself with the evil of his fellow man, he experiences real relief when evil no longer exists. But from the selfish expect nothing but ingratitude. Recognition in words costs him nothing, but in action would fatigue him and disturb his rest. He only acts for another when forced, but never spontaneously. We see it or we see it manifested in this world in the most varied forms. So it could be individual selfishness, it could be family selfishness, it could be social class selfishness, racial selfishness, national selfishness, sectarian selfishness. It is in its individual aspect. It is based on exaggerated feeling of self-interest, exclusive care for oneself, and lack of love for others, including those who live under the same roof, who are often the first to suffer its effects. Family selfishness consists in the love of parents, siblings, children, in short, those who are linked by the ties of um, consanguinity to the exclusion of others. Limited by this family spirit, there are still many who do not know that we are all brothers, all children of one Heavenly Father, and who refuse any expression of solidarity outside the restricted circle of their own kinship. Social class selfishness is felt through the movements so in vogue today. Sometimes it's a professional class that goes on strike, sometimes it's another that promotes collectively bargaining, or it's public servants who put pressure on governments to force compliance with their requirements, each group acting solely on the basis of its convenience, without regard for the imbalance and the sacrifices that this could cost the community. Now, I'm not saying all movements are like that, but we can see a lot of them. Race selfishness is also responsible for a series of painful dramas and conflicts. So, say the Black people, victims of cruel discrimination in various parts of the world, as well as those in love who in such large numbers could not become husband and wife according to the yearning of their hearts because of the racial prejudices of their families. They spoke louder, preventing the realization of their dreams of happiness. Now, national selfishness is what is disguised or hidden under the label of patriotism. Inhabitants of a country on the pretext of aggrandizing their homeland, they invade other countries, they enslave their populations, they destroy their nationality, thus generating unbearable hatred that sooner or later will explode into new bloody struggles. Sectarian selfishness is that which turns believers into fanatics, in whose eyes only their church is true and saving, all others being sources of error and perdition. Fanatics who are forbidden to hear or read anything that goes against the dogmas of its religious organization, which is forbidden to help social assistance, and So they are forbidden to help social assistance institutions whose leaders have religious principles different from their own, and to which it is inculcated that it is a duty of conscience to defend such narrowness of feeling. This type of selfishness is without doubt the most disastrous because it is clothed in a religious fanaticism, preventing the naive and unprepared to recognize it from what it is in reality. So, selfishness stems from pride, as we are seeing. The exaltation of personality leads man to consider himself above others, judging himself with superior rights. The resents whatever, in his view, constitutes an offense against his rights. The pride he attaches to his person naturally makes him selfish. Sorry, let me just wet my throat a little bit. So, selfishness and pride are born from a natural feeling, the conservation instinct. All instincts have their reason and their usefulness, or their usefulness, yeah. Since God cannot have done anything useless, He did not create evil. Man is the one who produces it, abusing the gifts of God by virtue of his free will. So, contained within fair limits, that feeling is good in itself. The exaggeration is what makes it bad and pernicious. The same is true for all the passions which man often diverts from his providential aim. He was not created selfish, nor proud. God created man simple and ignorant. It is man who has become selfish and proud, exaggerating the instinct that God has given him for its conservation. So it's like fear as well. So sometimes we are very fearless of the future of things that could happen in our lives, or it could be an insecurity, it could be many things. But this is basically an exaggeration of the instinct fear, which helps us. So, for example, if you didn't have fear, you would cross the road without looking both sides, and you could be run by a car. So, this is necessary, but we need to make sure that we are not exaggerating this feeling. We are using it as we are supposed to use it. So in the Genesis chapter 3, item 10, and I have the book here. If one were to study all the passions and even all the vices, one could see that they have their origin in the self-preservation instinct. This instinct can be found in all its might in the animals and in those primitive humans closest to the animal existence, wherein instinct dominates exclusively. Among them, there is not yet the moral sense as a counterweight. They have not yet awakened to the intellectual life. Conversely, instinct weakens as intelligence develops, because intelligence dominates matter. The destiny of human beings lies in the spirit life, but in the first phases of their corporeal existence, there are only material needs to satisfy. And toward that end, the exercising of the passions is a need for the preservation both of the species and individuals, materially speaking. But once they leave that period, there are other needs. First, semi-moral and semi-material needs. Next, exclusively moral. It is then that the spirit dominates matter. If it shakes off its yoke, it advances along the providential path and grows closer to its final destiny. If to the contrary it allows itself to be dominated by matter, it holds itself back by identifying with the animal. In such a situation, what was once something good because it was a need of its condition becomes evil, not only because it's no longer a need, but because it becomes detrimental to the spiritualization of the being. That which is considered an attribute in a child becomes a flaw in an adult. So, evil is relative and responsibility for it is proportional to the spirit's degree of advancement. Therefore, all the passions have their providential usefulness. Otherwise, God would have made something useless and noxious. It is their abuse that constitutes evil, and humans abuse things by virtue of their free will. Later, enlightened through their own interests, they freely choose between good and evil. Um, and there's also an extract from the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 11, item 8. So, item 8 says, Love summarizes Jesus' doctrine in its entirety because it is the sentiment par excellence, and sentiments are instincts raised to the height of the degree of progress accomplished. At their origin, humans have only instincts; more advanced and corrupted, they have only sensations; more educated and purified, they have sentiments. The exquisite apex of sentiment is love, not love in the ordinary sense of the term, but that inner sun that condenses and joins at its ardent focal point all suprahuman aspirations and revelations. The law of love replaces the personality which the union of all beings and extinguish societal misery. Happy are they who, overcoming their human nature, love with a great love their brothers and sisters in suffering. Happy are they who love, for they know the anguish neither of the soul nor of the body. Their feet are light, and they live as though transported outside themselves. When Jesus spoke the divine word love, it made people tremble, and martyrs, filled with hope, descend into the arena. I find this part really beautiful. So, how to make sense of the state of mind of modern man, who is so concerned with being well in life, earning well, and not well, earning, because earning well, it could have a different meaning, could be earning enough, um, but earning too much. There are a lot of people that worry so much about having so a lot of money and working to become rich. That purpose is almost like a purpose of an addicted man. It is a strong expression of um, ignorance of spiritual values on earth, where almost all moral achievements are reversed. And I say that according to Spiritism. So those are not my words, those are words from the Spiritism literature. It was this excess of restlessness and the most unrestrained selfishness that provoked the moral crisis of this world, in which sinister spectacles we can recognize. Man needs more truth than money, more light than bread. So in Heaven and Hell, Part 1, Chapter 1, Item 2, Alarkandak says, when humans believe in nothingness, they overwhelmingly concentrate all their thoughts on their present life, and there's no reason for them to worry about the future that they do not expect to arrive. This exclusive preoccupation with the present leads them to think of their own selves more than anything else. It is therefore a most powerful stimulus for selfishness, and disbelievers are being consistent when they reach the following conclusion: let us enjoy ourselves while we are here. Let us enjoy ourselves as much as possible because we know that after death it will all end. Let us enjoy ourselves right now, for we do not know how much longer our lives will last. This way of thinking leads them to another assumption that is even more consequential for society. Let us enjoy ourselves in any way we can, every man for himself, as they say. Happiness in this world is for those who are the cleverest. I find this really interesting. Um, and I'm going to explain why in a bit. So, not knowing where man comes from um, makes them believe that themselves that they are more than they actually are, and nothing and not knowing where he is going, he concentrates all his thinking on earthly life. So that's why it's so important to have a perspective of life that is more than what we call materialism or the beliefs in nothingness. So, to complete this thought in the Spirit's Book, question 919, I like bringing the Spirit's Book or even all Allan Kardec literature to the talk because it shows it shows basically where we come from when we say the things that we are saying. So, question 914 says, since selfishness is based on personal interests, it seems difficult to entirely uproot it from the human heart. Will we ever be able to do so? And the answer from the spirits. As humans become enlightened about spiritual things, they attach less value to material things. Next, it is necessary to reform the human institutions that entertain and excite such attachment. This depends on education, so we need to educate ourselves. Question 915. Since selfishness is inherent to the human species, won't it always be a permanent obstacle to the reign of absolute goodness upon the earth? And the answer from the spirits: it is certain that selfishness is your greatest evil, but it is connected to the unpurified nature of the spirits incarnated on the earth, and not to the human species per se. Upon purifying themselves over successive incarnations, spirits get rid of selfishness just as they get rid of other impurities. On the earth, are there not persons who are divested of selfishness and who practice charity? They exist in greater numbers than you might think, but you know few of them because virtue does not seek to reveal itself in broad daylight. If there is one, why would there not be 10? If there are 10, why would there not be 1,000, and so on? So one of the things that I always say is we need to be careful where we are getting our um, information or our news from, because the mainstream media, they like to prioritize or even sometimes distort the stories that they tell. So we need to be very careful to not be swamped about those on of those things, and we need to search for um, different sources of news as well, so we can kind of balance and have a better sense of what's happening. So, as the Spirit says here, if there's one, why would there not be 10? If there are 10, why would there not be 1,000 or so on? So, we don't learn about those things, but they exist, and they exist in very high numbers. Um, there is there's a, how do you call that? It's a profile that I follow on Instagram that is called what's the name? It's like um it's something good. So basically what they say is, I forgot the name now, but what they say is like they propagate good things that people do. So that's all they publish about. It's all about nice things that happened, or nice things that people did to each other, or nice news as well. So there are many. We just need to focus our attention to those things so we can learn more from them as well, or about them as well. And just to continue in the Spirit's book, question 917, what is the means for destroying selfishness? Of all human imperfections, the most difficult to uproot is selfishness, because it is connected to the influence of matter, from which human beings, still so close to their origin, have not been able to free themselves. Everything concurs to sustain its influence: your laws, your social organizations, and your education. Selfishness will be weakened with the predominance of the moral life over the material life, and especially with the understanding that Spiritism gives you concerning your true future state, which is no longer distorted by allegorical fictions. When it is well understood and identified with customs and beliefs, Spiritism will transform habits, usages, and social relations. Selfishness is founded upon the importance of the personality. When well understood, it repeat, Spiritism enables you to see things from such an evolved point of view that the sentiment of the personality somehow disappears, so to speak, before the immensity of it all. Upon destroying this self-importance, or at least showing it for what it's worth, the Spiritism necessarily combats selfishness. So, Spiritism is a very good tool, if we can use this expression in this case, to help us overcome selfishness, because it gives us a different perspective of life. So, proving that spirits can be reborn in different social conditions, either by atonement or by trial or reincarnation, teaches us that the one we treat with disdain can be someone who was our superior or our equal in another existence, a friend or a relative. If we knew the one facing us, we would treat them with attention. But in that case, we would have no merit. On the other hand, if we knew that our present friend was our enemy, our servant, or our slave, we would no doubt repel them. Well, God didn't want it to be like that, so He threw a veil over the past. In this way, man is led to see in everyone his brothers and his equals, hence, or whence, a natural basis for fraternity. Knowing that we can be treated as we have treated others, charity becomes our duty and necessity, founded on nature itself. Jesus established or he applied the principle of charity, equality, and fraternity, making it an express condition for salvation. And the last part that I'm going to read, the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 11, item 4, says, loving one's neighbor as oneself, doing unto others what we would want them to do unto us, is the most complete expression of charity there is, because it sums up all our duties toward our neighbor. One could not have a surer guide in this respect than the commandment that one should do unto others what one desires for oneself. By what right would one demand from one's fellow beings better behavior, more indulgence, benevolence, and dedication than what one shows towards them? The practice of these two maxims leads to the destruction of selfishness. When humans take them as a rule for their conduct and as a foundation for their institutions, they will understand true fraternity and will ensure that peace and justice reign among them. There will be neither hatred nor dissension, but only unity, harmony, and mutual benevolence. So, when the law of love and charity is finally the law of humankind, there will be no more selfishness. The weak and peace-loving will no longer be exploited or crushed by the strong and aggressive. Such will be the state of the earth, when according to the law of progress and the promise of Jesus, it becomes a blessed world through the removal of wicked individuals. Selfishness is the source of all vices, just as charity is the source of all virtues. To destroy one and develop the other must be the aim of all our efforts, and we are to secure happiness in this world as well as in the future. So, as we saw from heaven and hell, when we believe in nothingness, we act in a way that we want to enjoy life now because um, it's limited and that's all we can see. Um, that way of thinking is not so bad if we, instead of being selfish, we start being more charitable. And if we think that our life is short, especially when we compare to eternity. So we have such a like the opportunity to be here on earth and use all that there is to it to help our improvement is is a blessing. And if we think about this short period of time, what is the best way of using it? So instead of thinking, let us enjoy ourselves in any way we can, um, because life is short, we can say, let's be as much charitable as we can, as much kind to other people as we can, because this opportunity is short. And we want our next life to be better than this one. And we want to improve and we want to grow. So let's use it in our favor. And I'm saying that like I'm speaking these words, but I'm also saying that to myself. So I include myself in that um, in that how can I say that endeavor? Let's say like this. So let's us all try to be more charitable, try to be more kind, and if we don't need to focus on not being selfish. We can be focused on being charitable and being kind, and that will automatically remove selfishness from our lives. So that was all for me today. And guys. Let me just check if there's any comment or question. It doesn't seem so. Um, so I just want to, as we always tell you guys, that if you need help, there's the yourmentalhealth.ie website that you can access from anywhere. And in this website, you'll find advice on how to mind your mental health during any situation that you are facing. There's also the psychotherapycouncil.ie website. Um, no, actually, let me just see if I can find it here. I can't find the website, but the mentalhealth.ie is here. So if you need to find resources to cope with anything, this website can help you. There's also the Samaritans helpline. It's 116123. You can also, if you are in Ireland, you can also use the service from the government, which is a text. So you can text 50808, and it's available 24/7. And also, if you want to speak with us, our email is fraternalgatheringdublin@gmail.com. So it's one of the emails that we have. It's basically for people that want to talk to somebody. Now, the bibliography today was basically the Spirit's book, the Genesis, the Gospel according to Spiritism, and Heaven and Hell, as I mentioned during the talk. And just to finalize our activities, we are still not able to do it in person, unfortunately. So our activities are our public meetings in the form of lives for now, every Sunday from 11:15, like today, to around 12:15. We also have our talk shows in the form of lives. It's every Tuesday and Thursdays at 7:15 p.m. We have our study groups every Wednesday from 8 to 9. And if you want to participate in this study group, you can send us an email to the spiritismisland@gmail. And there's also our Facebook page. It's just the Spiritism Society of Ireland. So if you want, you can also talk to us from there, and you can see our updates, and you can also see videos like this there as well. So I want to thank you guys for being here, for taking some time to listen to us and participate. I hope you have an amazing Sunday and you can enjoy the rest of your weekend. Let's just do our final prayer before we finish. So if you want and if you can, just close your eyes. Let's raise our thoughts to Jesus, to our spiritual friends, to our mentors. Let's first of all thank them for this morning, for being here with us, for helping us during this talk, helping us not only on our message, but also helping us to open our minds and our ears for everything that was being said, that was said. Let's ask for our friends, for our families, and for everyone in this world that is facing any problems. Let's ask that they find the way to Jesus, the way to God, that they can find a good solution for their problems, that they can find comfort in Jesus and in God. So be with us, dear Jesus and God, helping us all the time because we need it. And so be it. So that was all today, guys. Thank you again so very much. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.